Hello dear students, how are you all? Hope you are fine and safe at your homes. So yesterday we had a live class and I have taken a test based on the chapter number 4 of your geography, and many of you have responded very well. A few of you were not prepared for the test, so next time whenever you come to class, so whatever homework is given to you, so please do come prepared, because these marks will be counted as your internal assessment in your upcoming exams. In the month of September, we'll be adding marks based on this Viva, your live attendance and your submission of assignments and all. Whatever mock test is there or Viva is there, so all these have a weightage of some marks. So you have to do that on time and nicely. So today we are here and we need to finish the reading part that is left. Half of the chapter we have already done. In the previous video, we have learned about the importance of maps over globes. Then we have learned about the history of map, and we have also learned about what is cartography, who are the cartographers, and then we have learned the types of maps on the basis of scale and on the basis of function. So we have done that on the basis of scale we have two types of maps, large scale map and small scale map. And on the basis of functions we have done, it is three types, that is physical map, political map and thematic map. And so you all have done good in the Viva, you all know that I have already taken the feedback. So today we are going to start the further reading of the chapter, and sideways we will mark the objective questions as we usually do. So let's start. So today what we are going to deal in the chapter is the components of a map. That is, three components are there. We have distance, direction and symbols. Then we'll learn something about the sketch and plan, the difference between all these three. So let's start the reading part. You can open your books on page number 140. So let's start. Please underline, there are three components of a map: distance, direction and conventional signs, or we even call them symbols, right? So first we'll learn about distances. What is distance now? The space between two places is called a distance. So what is distance? The space between two places. So whatever space is there between the two places, it is known as distance. Important one mark objective question can be there. What is distance or define distance? So you will write this line. Please underline. In our country, India, the system used to measure distance is called a metric system. Today in the live class, yesterday I have asked this question. So what is the measure that we use in India to measure? So it is what? The system that is used for measuring distance in India is known as metric system. So we have this objective question, please underline. According to it, now what is metric system? Please underline. Important 2 marks question can even be asked, and you have always content based questions in your exam. So you need to underline what is this metric system now. According to it, long distances are measured in kilometers. We all know whenever we need to measure long distance, we always take it as kilometers, and short distances in the meters. The distance shown on a map between any two points is measured in centimeters or inches, whereas on the map the distance shown between any two points, it is always measured in centimeters or in inches. Please underline again an important objective question. How do we represent the distance if we have to represent it on the map? So it is always represented in either the form of centimeters or in the form of inches on the map. Important objective question. Thus the distance between two cities or countries is measured in inches or centimeters on the map and then related to the road distance between those places as found on the earth. So we always represent on the map in the forms of centimeters and inches, that is map distance, and then related to the actual road distance or the ground distance, that is measured in kilometers. So it is always just the ratio of the map distance to the ground distance or the actual distance of the floor, and that is known as metric system. When the distance between any two places on a map is measured along a straight line, it is called a map distance. Now again an important objective question, what is map distance? So you need to underline, when the distance between any two places on a map is measured along a straight line. So if we take the distance in accordance with the straight line, it is known as map distance. When the distance between the same two places is measured on the ground along a straight line, it is called as ground distance. So when we take the map distance, it is known as map distance, and when we represent the ground distance in the form of kilometers, that is known as ground distance. The ratio between the map distance and the ground distance is known as the scale of a map. And then what is the scale of a map ultimately? It is nothing but the ratio between the map distance and the ground distance. And this is known as a scale of a map. This is an important objective question. What do you mean by the scale of a map? What do you mean by ground distance? What do you mean by map distance? So many small questions can be framed out of these paragraphs, and you should be clear. Okay. The ratio between the map distance and the ground distance is known as the scale of a map. Please underline. And then we have explained you with the help of an example. Suppose the scale of a map is 1 centimeter to the ratio of 10 kilometers. Now we are assuming 1 centimeter as 10 kilometers. Since we cannot represent 10 kilometers or 100 kilometers on a map, so what we use? We use centimeters and inches to represent long kilometers. So we assume 1 centimeter is equal to 10 kilometers, then 2 centimeters, 20 kilometers, then 3 centimeters, 30 kilometers. So this way we will represent the long distance in the shortest scale. It means that a distance of 1 centimeter between 2 points on the map is equal to a distance of 10 kilometers. So between 2 points, the distance of 1 centimeter is equal to 10 kilometers. Between the same 2 places on the ground. So what we assume is, we assume that if 2 cities are there like this, then this is 1 centimeter, this is 2 centimeter, and the distance between 2 cities is 10 kilometers. And here if it is 3, then here again it is 20 kilometers, again 10 plus 10, it comes to 20 kilometers. So this way we just represent the 2 points, and we take the ratio of the map distance to the ground distance. Okay. Then they have some multiple choice questions. Maps that show a very small area in great details. Small area but in great details. These are known as dash type of maps. So the options are physical, thematic or large scale maps. So maps that show a very small area in great details. So it is a large scale map. We have already done yesterday. So it is option number B according to your book. So you will put a tick on option number B. So what happens in large scale map? We represent a small area but with larger details, great details. The 3 main features of a map are symbols, distance, and third one is direction. So it is according to your book option number A. So put a tick on option number A. Okay. Then they have given you the various ways how you can represent a scale on a map. So components of map and then the ways of representing scale. How you can represent a scale on a map. So again there are 3 ways that they have discussed, in the form of linear equation, in the form of statement, and in the form of fraction. So we will study how it is there. So let's come to the first one. The scale on a map can be shown in the following ways: by a method of statement. Simple statement, it shows like 1 centimeter is equal to 10 kilometers as we have done. So we assume as 1 centimeter is equal to 10 kilometers, 2 centimeter is equal to obviously 20 kilometers, and so on. So this is the way of statement. So let's see. By a statement, in this method, this is the first method to represent a scale on a map. The scale is given in words. Please underline. So what is this method? In this method, simply we represent it in the form of words. For example, 1 centimeter is to 10 kilometers, or 1 centimeter is equal to 10 kilometers. So we represent it in the form of a word. According to this statement, 1 centimeter is the map distance. Now it is assumed as the map distance, and 10 kilometers is the corresponding ground distance that we are just relating it. So this is an easy method of representing a distance. It is very easy, and you might have done it in maths also, when you represent it on a number line. So next method is by a representative fraction method, and it is also known as RF factor, and this is very important method of representing a scale. Now what it is? What is the formula for RF? This is an again important objective question. What is the formula for RF and what is the full form of RF? So it is representative fraction method of representing a scale on a map. So let's see what it is. In this method, the ratio between the map distance and the ground distance is represented by a fraction. So fractions also you all have done in your maths, like 4 by 10. It is in the form of a fraction. 4 is called numerator and 10 is your denominator. So what it is in the form of a fraction, and you all have done it in the math. So it is also the easiest way, you all know it. So in this method, please underline, the ratio between the map distance and the ground distance is presented by a fraction whose numerator is always 1. So here in this method, we always assume the numerator to be 1. Right? And this is known as the representative fraction or the RF method. It is also known as numerical fraction. So RF is given as 1:1 lakhs. In this example, the numerator 1 is the map distance, which is always assumed as 1, and the denominator, that is 1 lakh, represents the ground distance. So it is RF is equal to map distance over ground distance. This is the formula for RF and you need to learn it. So RF is what? The distance of map over a ground distance, and where the numerator is always assumed to be 1. So RF is equal to map distance over ground distance, and it is represented in the form of a fraction, in the form of numerator is to denominator. Next, and the third one is by a graphic method or by a linear scale method. So a line is drawn in the linear scale method like this, and then the subdivisions are there. So let's see what is that. In this method, the map distance is shown with the help of a straight line. So as it is shown in your books also, this is a linear scale method, and what is it? In this, the map distance is shown with the help of a straight line, and this line is further divided into parts called the primary divisions, and it is again divided into primary divisions, and then the first primary division is again subdivided into divisions called the secondary divisions. Supposingly, if this is your primary divisions, let me make it little bit bigger. These are your primary divisions, and then in between sometimes you find this. So these are your subdivisions. So this is known as linear scale method, and it is in the form of a graphic representation. You can even call it as a graphic method. So what happens? It is the method in which the map distance is represented in the straight line, in the form of a straight line, and there are divisions known as primary divisions, and in between it we also have subdivisions. So this is what a graphic representation. This scale is helpful in representing distance directly from the map. It also provides the values of the relevant ground distances. So we don't have numerical sums as we have in science or in the maths. So we are not going to calculate how you have to calculate the distance. Simply you need to remember the 3 methods of representing scale on a map. So this was something about the component, the first component of a map, that is distance. How is distance represented on a map and what are the various methods? Next you have the second one, that is direction. We all have done and learned about directions. How many directions are there? Can anyone tell me quickly? We all know we have 4 cardinal directions. Yes. In yesterday's video also we have learned about the cardinal and intermediate direction. So we have north direction, south direction, east direction and west direction. So these are the 4 cardinal directions, and these north, south, east and west, they are known as cardinal directions. And in between these two we have here northeast, southeast, southwest, and this is northwest. So this is what? Northwest, southeast, southwest, northeast. These are known as intermediate directions. So let's study about these now. The map is also shown here in your books. These directions are clearly visible as I have drawn on the board, so you can just see from there. So this is the two types of directions that we take help of. Finding distance between two places on a map is not enough. We must know the actual direction of the places or cities in relation to each other. This directional relation must be represented on a map. So you simply need to remember what are cardinal directions and what type of directions are known as cardinal directions, how many cardinal directions are there, and what are intermediate directions and what are the types of intermediate directions. Simply you need to learn that, nothing more than that we are going to do from here. The direction is represented on a map with the help of an arrow. So how we represent the direction on a map? It is always represented with the help of a arrow like this, as we draw rays in the signs. You all might have done or you might be doing. So it is just in the form of an arrow. Please underline it with the help of an arrow. The tip of the arrow is marked with the letter N. So the tip is marked with the letter N here. Then letter N represent the north direction. This we have already done in the first chapter also of geography. This arrow is known as the north line when we were doing about the poles. So see, it is similar to the north pole and the south pole. So it is here, it is known as north line because we are talking of a scale, of a line, of a direction, of a arrow. Thus the directions on the map are always shown with respect to the north direction. Please underline, very important. The direction on the maps are always shown with respect to the north direction. Earlier also we have done. If we know the north direction, then we can easily calculate the other directions because we know opposite to the north we have the south direction and which direction is towards the left and then which is towards the right hand side. So we can easily calculate the directions. Therefore, if we know the north direction, the other directions that is east, west and south could easily be known. And these four directions are known as cardinal directions. So please underline what are cardinal directions. North, south, east, west, these are known as cardinal directions. There are other intermediate directions. Now please underline intermediate directions. What are the other directions called? As we have southeast, southwest, northeast and northwest. These are known as intermediate because they are in between directions. So these are known as intermediate directions in between the four cardinal directions. If we know the four cardinal directions, these intermediate interactions can easily be known. Again, if we know the main cardinal directions, then we can easily know the four main intermediate directions also. The direction between north and east is called, so between north and east it is called northeast direction. Between east and south it is southeast. Between west and south it is southwest. And between north and west it is northwest. These are intermediate directions, right? So this you can easily learn from here. And then finding the directions. For thousands of years, humans have been using the sun to find directions during the day. So in the ancient period, if we look of how the people used to find the direction, they used to take the help of the sun. So let's study about it, how they used to find out the direction, which direction they need to travel, which direction they need to go, because they took the help of magnetic compass. They looked at the pole star at night if they had to travel. We have done that. So let's study about magnetic compass also under it. So as we know, the sun rises in the east and sets in the west. We all know, so they took the help of sun because we know that the sun rises in east and sets in west. So if we know the sun that it rises in east and sets in west, so we are known two directions. So with the easily known two directions, we can find out the rest of the two directions. So this way they took the help of the sun in olden times. When we face the sun in the morning, we face the east while the west is towards the back. So when we know that the sun rises in the east, if we are facing towards the sun, then that means that we are facing towards which side? Obviously, if sun rises in the east, we are facing the east side, and just opposite to east, we have the west side. So we all know that west will be at the back of us. A left hand points towards the north and right hand points towards the south. So if we know which is there, direction is there on the right hand side, which is there on the left hand side, so we can easily calculate. So please underline, a left hand points towards the north and the right hand side points towards the south. So you need to underline. So this way we can easily find out the direction. So how we will find? By looking at the sun. So the sun, if we are facing towards the sun, then that is east direction. Opposite it we have the west direction, and on the right hand side we have the south direction. On the left hand side we have the which direction? North direction. So this way we can calculate the directions. Okay. Then one more thing they have given you with the help of the pole star, as we have done in the previous chapter also. Pole star, it is always pointing towards which direction? We have already done in the previous chapter. Yes, it always points towards the north pole. So that is north direction. So if we know the north direction, then all the three directions can be easily calculated. So how? Let's see. We can know the direction at night with the help of a pole stars. Now that was during the day, that we can calculate through sun, but in the night we have to look at the pole star, which always points towards the north direction. We have read it in chapter 1. The pole star is located vertically above the north pole. Where is pole star located? Please underline. It is located just vertically above the north pole. So somewhere here it is vertically located above the north pole. Then when seen in the northern hemisphere, the Great Bear or Saptarishi constellation keeps moving around the pole star. So what happens? The Great Bear, that is a constellation, Saptarishi, it keeps on moving around the pole star, as you can see in this figure. So this is pole star pointed towards the north direction, and here you have the Great Bear. This is the constellation and keeps on revolving around the pole star. The two pointer stars of this constellation always point towards the pole star. So the 2 points or the 2 stars, pointer stars of this constellation, you can say they always point towards the pole star. The pole star tells the north direction, and thus the other directions could easily be calculated. These methods were used by the ancient people. Thus they could travel through great deserts and oceans at night without losing their sense of direction. So it was very, very helpful. The sun in the daytime and the pole star during the night time to the ancient people when they had to travel in the night, when there was lot of darkness and when the directions were not known. Nowadays we can easily have a magnetic compass, or you can see on your phones, on your smartphones. So it is there in that. But then in the older times they had to take the help of sun and the pole star in the day and in the night. Now something about the magnetic compass. Okay, so now see what is it. During cloudy conditions now, supposedly when there are a lot of clouds in the sky, you can't see a star in the night, you can't see a sun, it is all covered with clouds, then what will you do? How will you move? How will you travel? So then what is of use is your magnetic compass. So let's see. And magnetic compass, it is like this, and you can easily search it on your phone also. You can take the help of your mobile phones. Just download the app Compass and you can just see in which direction your house is located. So during cloudy conditions, one could not use the sun or the pole star to find directions. Then magnetic compass. So mariners and sailors also used a device called a magnetic compass to find directions. The needle of, please underline very, very important point now. The needle of the magnetic compass always point towards the north-south direction. So it is like this, that the needle of the magnetic compass, it is always like this, and it always points towards the north-south direction. So the mariners, the sailors, they took the help of magnetic compass to know about their direction, especially when there were cloudy night or sky. So this was something about the directions, how you can know the directions and what are the different methods you can use to know the directions. Then the third component of a map is symbols. So let's move on to the symbols now. Let us study the symbols. So you might have seen in your atlases, in your map, sometimes a blue color is shown, then a green color is also there, then the brown color is shown. What are these? Brown colors is always used to represent mountains, then trees, fields, it represents by green color. Then blue color is for oceans, seas, water bodies that we have, it is always represented through blue color. So these are the various colors and symbols. Sometimes you will find a triangle, sometimes you will find a zigzag line, sometimes you will find a circle. So these are the various symbols used to represent in a map if you have seen it. So let's study about it. Okay. The maps that we use are very small in size and contain very less space. So the maps we use, we all know they are very small in size and the space is also very less over there. But we have to show a lot of information of a large area on a very small scale in a map, and then we need to show the countries, the rivers, from where does it start flowing and from where does it end. So this is not possible basically. So how do we do that? In order to solve this problem, different colors, symbols, signs, letters are used to show the information. So please underline. In order to show a lot of information of a large area on a small scale, we use different colors, letters, symbols, signs. A proper understanding of these signs and symbols is necessary to understand any information given on the map. So what are these? There are many countries in the world. They mutually agreed upon the common use of signs, and it is not like that कि India agreed that okay, for mountains we'll take the brown color, and then America also said okay, then for mountains let us take the green color. It was not like that. If it could have been like this, then if we see the world map, it would have been a chaos. We could not have been able to understand anything. So we have agreed to the common symbols. Different countries have agreed to some common symbols, some common signs, some common colors. So let's see what are those colors and signs. They mutually agreed upon the common use of signs, symbols and colors for the maps. For example, throughout the word, please underline, green color is used to show plains, that is where the trees are there, where the crops are grown, green color. And blue color represents oceans and seas, the water bodies, please underline. Similarly, brown color is used to show the mountains, underline, and yellow is used to show the plateaus. So there are various colors to represent the plateaus, mountains, seas, oceans, all these things. These signs and symbols are called conventional signs and symbols, and these signs and symbols are known as conventional signs and symbols, which have been mutually agreed to by various countries. Therefore, the information that we see on a map can be understood only when we know its language, and that is possible only if we can understand the language of these symbols, of these letters, of these signs. It includes features like scale, directions, colors, signs and symbols. So we should know the language of a map basically to understand it. Then there are some multiple choice questions. The needle of a magnetic compass always point in which direction? It is east-west, west or north-south. Just now we have done north-south. So it is option number C according to your book. So put a tick on option number C. In a map, green color represents oceans, mountains or plains. Just now we have done, it represents green color, plains. So it is option number A according to your book. So put a tick on option number A. So after this we have a sketch and a plan. What is a sketch? What is a plan? What is the difference between a sketch and a plan? This we are going to discuss tomorrow. So let's stop it here. So do read the chapter whatever we have done and try to understand. Watch the video again and read the chapter nicely and thoroughly. Also just revise the objective questions that we have marked and just try to solve the book work. Tomorrow we will take the book work also and the two topics, small topics that are left. So that's all for today. Thanks for watching. Stay safe. Stay